Hello, happy Wednesday, and welcome back to another segment of Q&A Wednesdays. Now, before we jump into the topic for today, just a few reminders. Our commercial break we're going to get into now. All right, so if you have a brand or business and you need assistance, connect with us today. Go to Intelexx.com, see all the products and services that we offer, book a free consultation. Let us help you so that you can be your best self. That's what we do. We help you be your best and promote your unique artistry. If you want to be a part of our intellectual community and be in an intimate setting to where you could be your unique artistic self, that a place where you can share your art, connect with others, collaborate, and share content, join our app, the Artrepreneurs Hub. Go to the Mighty Networks app, create an account, look for us, and we're right there. We also have a link on our website at Intelexx.com. All right, so are y'all ready for this segment? Listen, if you haven't been keeping up with all of our series, make sure to go back and check us out on our app and on our YouTube channel. But today we are going to be discussing how we can overcome emotions part 3. All right, and I want you all to comment in the chat and in the comment section, how do you overcome emotions? Because we're going to talk about it today. So let's jump right on in.
You can watch the best parts of this series at medcircle.com. Now, what if you don't have emotions? I need more emotions.
Have emotions.
Yes,
That's
okay.
the point.
Yes, yeah.
And actually, this is great. This is a great segue into the 3 goals of emotion regulation module. So the first goal is understand your emotions. Know what they are. Know that you have them. Understanding what they do for you. Emotions help us to communicate. Emotions motivate our actions. And emotions can be self-affirming, meaning that sometimes you sort of have that intuition. And that's actually your emotional experience. It's your emotions telling you, hey, something's right about this or something's not so right about this particular situation. You should be upset or you shouldn't be upset. And so emotions are serving a function for us. It's an adaptive survivalist function. If we didn't have emotions, we would not be alive. We would die off as a species.
Yes.
Because, for example, the emotion of fear is what leads us to have fight or flight reactions that get us out of sticky situations that could kill us. So the first goal of emotion regulation is understanding your emotions and being able to make contact with them. The second goal is reducing your vulnerability to emotional decision making and the impulses that might take over us when we're feeling extremely negative emotions. And to reduce your emotional vulnerability, a big part of that is good lifestyle choices. So getting enough sleep, having a good diet, having an exercise regimen, having good self-care, all of that helps to reduce our vulnerability to emotion mind. And finally, the last goal of emotion regulation is to decrease emotional suffering. So when we have negative emotions, nobody likes that. What can we do about that? Well, one way is actually to reduce that vulnerability through mindfulness. So we can reduce our suffering through using mindfulness techniques. And obviously mindfulness is coming back again to visit us in this module. Also, we can really manage how we deal with painful emotions by acting in opposite action. This is a technique that's explored a lot in this module. So it's about when you're scared, do it anyway. When you're sad, act like you're not sad. You want to crawl into bed, but do the opposite. Go out and take a walk, engage with your community. And that really harkens back to research that shows that when we behave in a certain way, our emotions sometimes will follow suit. So it really is bi-directional.
I really believe that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is true. Into the small things and the big things. Even if you're feeling bad, just getting dressed in some nice clothes makes you feel different, you know?
Absolutely.
If you don't want it, because I've suffered from depression my whole life, and there are days where you want to just lay in bed the whole day. But if you force yourself, that's why I love having a dog, because I got to take the dog outside.
That's right.
You force yourself to go outside, you immediately feel different. You
Absolutely.
feel a little better.
Yeah.
What about the emotion of denial, though? How can we be aware of something that in itself is something we're not aware of? Because it's denial.
That's right. Well, and I think that's why the first goal of this module is so important, is really understanding emotions and being able to use emotion words to describe your experience. So there are some people who engage in denial and they've just ignored their emotions completely. They just don't really talk about it. They don't describe anything in emotion words. And in fact, all of their suffering is described in physical words. I have a headache. I have a stomach ache. I don't feel well. Tired. Right? Instead of saying, I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm scared. And so the first goal of emotion regulation is actually just making contact with your emotion words. I mean, there's literally pages and pages of emotion words that they show you as part of the work in this module.
What are emotion words?
Right, exactly. I mean, well, some of them are like things like sadness, fear, happiness, joy, giddiness. You know, they really show you sort of like the entire gamut of what emotion words are. And maybe you've seen those charts where there's sort of emotion words with like smiley faces and different kinds of things. So that's actually a tool that we use in the emotion regulation module. A big part of making contact with your emotions really does serve the therapeutic process. There is a large amount of patients who have what we call alexithymia. It means that they can't use emotion words to describe their experience. And when that happens, it's really hard to make progress in therapy because you don't have that insight. You might be engaged in that denial in a very pervasive way. And so this really helps them to direct this new part of their vocabulary that they've never developed.
What do you mean they can't explain things using those emotional words? They go watch the movie Titanic and they don't say that was sad?
They might just say that was interesting, or words that are a little bit more cerebral.
Are they feeling emotions?
They probably do, but they have not let themselves accept that. And that's a big piece of this module too, is like accepting that we all have emotions. Just accepting it. Not trying to change it, but just accept that we all have emotions. And you can't say you don't because it's a biological, fundamental fact that we all have emotions. But if you somehow can't describe it, it really puts a stop on how you can manage your life. And
I could see how detrimental that could be.
Yeah.
To live and feel, but not being able to explain it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, people just feel so clogged up. They feel like people don't understand them. And I think that's why it's such a big part of the DBT program, that we really need to learn first and foremost to know that emotions are inevitable, that they're a part of every single person, that it's actually biological in nature. For some of my most resistant clients, I always bring in biology and medicine into it as much as I can, because it removes some of the judgment. It's not about, wow, well, I'm just a weak person that I'm feeling sad all the time. It's just, no, that sadness is communicating a need.
Yes.
Some need is not being addressed.
Ooh, that is good.
Yeah, it's a good one.
That sadness is communicating a need.
Yes.
That's really good.
Yes.
So now it's your job to find that need.
Right, and then address it.
Thanks for watching. Your next step is to go to medcircle.com and finish watching this series. There you can also access other series and get actionable advice and simple explanations. Continue your mental health journey at medcircle.com, and I'll see you there.
All right, what did y'all think about that? Let's dive into that a little bit, okay, before we move on, because Dr. Judy was getting us together. All right, she said to understand your emotions. We can't overcome something if we don't understand it, right? If we didn't have emotions, she said we wouldn't be alive. That's a deep statement. I want y'all to really think about that. How we would be if we didn't have emotions, if we couldn't express ourselves. Expression is the greatest form of freedom. And if we are not really diving into that and getting into it, you know what I mean, then we need to reconsider what we're actually doing, okay? In order to reduce vulnerability, if you're upset or frustrated, you use mindfulness. So a lot of times different coping skills work with emotions too. And, you know, getting your chakra energy together, getting your mind right, getting your body right, preparing yourself for whatever it is you have to do. Mindfulness will get you there. Meditation will get you there. Just actually being quiet enough to hear yourself and to listen to you. But if there's so much noise around you, if there's so many distractions around you, and you're being pulled every which way, you're not really taking that time to get to know who you are. So let's get into that, right? She also said to make contact with your emotion words like fear, sadness, giddiness, happiness, all of those things, but actually identifying how you're feeling in that moment. She did point out people with alexithymia aren't able to identify how they're feeling. So we also have to understand that everybody is not at that place where they're able to communicate how they actually feel and give them some grace, being emotionally disconnected or not really understanding what you're actually feeling in order to communicate that to somebody else. So that is also a learning process within yourself when you're learning how to deal with your emotions, learning what they actually are so that you can deal with them the right way. Okay, what did y'all think? What are your thoughts on that? What do you have to add when it comes to what she said about dealing with emotions? Because it's pretty simple, but a lot of things that are simple are not easy and it takes work to get there. So let me know in the comment section what your thoughts are on this. All right, and while y'all are doing that, let's move on to the next segment.
Hi, I'm Dr. Tracy Marks, a psychiatrist, and I make mental health education videos. I've talked about dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT, as the best treatment for borderline personality disorder. But there are modified forms of DBT that can be helpful for other conditions like bipolar disorder, anxiety, eating disorders, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Today I'm going to teach you one of the many techniques that's used with DBT to be able to manage your emotions. It's called distress tolerance. Distress tolerance is the skill of being able to accept the emotion that you're feeling without resorting to coping behaviors that make your situation and your overall condition worse. The top 3 categories of negative emotions are sadness, anger, and fear, and we all have different degrees of tolerance for these kinds of emotions. It's a normal reaction to want to get rid of the negative emotions, but what you do to get rid of these emotions makes all the difference in what happens to the emotions. Let me explain. Suppose I lose my job. I'm going to be upset about that. It's not realistic to think that I can just take the news and say, "Oh, that's a shame, but I'm happy to be alive." That's unnatural. We're built to experience a wide spectrum of emotions, from happiness to sadness to anger to fear. You may say, a person who's secure in themselves and in their faith has no reason to be fearful. But if a bear walks into the room and bares its teeth at me, I will wet my pants and run. Being afraid and wanting to run is an adaptive response for self-protection. So we're all wired to experience the full spectrum of emotions in response to both external and internal experiences. Internal experiences would be what you're thinking about in your head. How you tolerate and experience the different emotions is molded and shaped by your temperament, which is your nature, and your upbringing, which is how you were nurtured. I like to call your temperament your factory-installed reflex. It's basically what you were born with and is based on your genes. But you can be raised to believe that certain emotions like anger are bad and you should never show your anger. If you grow up believing this, then you're going to have serious issues dealing with and being or feeling angry. You may tell yourself that you're not angry, but your mind knows that you are, and the anger will show up as anxiety. Or unprocessed anger can show up as depression because that's more acceptable than demonstrating anger or even admitting that you're angry. So you have to be able to accept and handle the range of emotions that you experience. If you have trouble with that, then on an unconscious level, you will find a way to manage that emotion. And here are some of the maladaptive or not so great ways that we try and escape the negative emotions when we can't accept them. Avoidance. This is avoiding situations or seeking reassurance from people. You can also make futile attempts to distract yourself from the emotion. Numbing. You can use alcohol and drugs to numb the feeling, or binge eating, or even oversleeping so that you don't have to feel the pain. Another way to escape is to use self-harm, and this could be cutting or punching yourself or even pulling out your hair. Escaping the distressing emotion only works in the short term. What you do to escape it can cause more problems for you in the long term. So what does it mean to tolerate the distressing emotion instead of escape it? It means you accept it, make room for it, sit with it, and let it pass on its own time. There are several techniques within DBT to help you tolerate distress. Here's one that's based on the concept of mindfulness. I talk more about mindfulness in this video. The link will be in the corner and in the description. But in short, when you think mindfully, you focus on what's going on at the moment with acceptance and no judgment. It's just observation. And this is how you're going to treat your negative emotions. Here's a template for how you can think about them. Let's go back to my example of losing my job. I'm enraged because I think my company lied to me about keeping me around during the transition from one company to the next. And to make matters worse, the job went to someone I trained. Now, consciously, I think, I'm so upset. But unconsciously, my real thoughts are, I hate my boss and I want to beat him down to the ground. But with my upbringing, ladies don't think like that. And especially a Christian woman, that's evil to think such a thing. So I'm not consciously aware of my aggressive impulses. That's what a therapist would help me see. And instead, I bury my anger in a pan of brownies and I pick out my eyebrows. Here's what I want to do to process my rage, and this is a mindfulness exercise. Recognize and allow the emotion. This reflection is best made after I first hear the news that I'm being let go. I want to deal with this early before I get to the pan of brownies. So I would say, I'm feeling angry at Bob. In fact, I hate him. But I'm not bad because I have this feeling, and I can allow myself to have it. I'm going to make space for it, and I do not need to be afraid of it because I'm not going to take action against Bob. I can control myself. So I don't need to get rid of this feeling. So here I am admitting to the worst possible emotion that I can have about this situation. I want to assume that I'm going to downplay it in my mind. So go ahead and blow it up and own it. I'm not just mad, I hate him. But there's no judgment here. It's just an emotion. That's it. I'm not going to act on it. I'm just going to let it sit here with me. Next, you want to watch the emotion. Let me watch this anger and hate and see what it does. While I'm watching it, I'm going to call it what it is: anger and rage. I don't have to get caught up in it. Where do I notice the emotion in my body? I notice it in my shoulders. I feel tense. But it's just an emotion. Nothing more, nothing less. I am not my emotions. I simply watch my emotions. A good analogy is to think of the emotion as an ocean wave. I'm not going to struggle and fight this wave. I'm going to go with it and float with it. I may even ride this wave to the shore. The next step is to be present. You're going to turn your attention to what you're doing now, what's in front of you. And there's two ways that you can do this. The first is to use your 5 senses. I'm going to notice what's going on with all my 5 senses. What can I feel? What can I touch? What do I hear? What do I see in front of me? What do I smell? What do I taste? Another way you can be present is to turn your attention to your breath. My breath is my anchor for the moment. I take note of how I inhale and how I exhale. What do you do when the emotion comes back? When the emotion returns, you say, that's okay. That's what emotions do. They come and they go. But I'm going to watch it again. I'll let it sit here in the room with me, or I may float with it up and down again, just like the ocean wave. That's the exercise. You should write it down as a script and say it to yourself. I'll have a template for you in the description. These negative emotions do cause distress, but accepting this distress doesn't mean that you enjoy it, nor does it mean that you try and fake like it doesn't matter to you. Accepting the emotion is about changing the way that you look at it. You see it for what it is, and in my case, rage. And then I change how I pay attention to it. It's like I'm detaching from the sting of the emotion because I'm simply observing it as one of many emotions that I can experience. So I don't have to fear that it's going to consume me because I'm over here and it's over there. And how I pay attention to the emotion changes how it affects me. Give it a try. I have a template for this exercise in the description. See you.
All right, y'all. What did y'all think about that? Dr. Tracy also was getting us together. She talked about DBT and how the distress tolerance that we have sometimes when we have certain emotions, we don't sit and process it and figure out what actually is going on subconsciously. We just go off of the surface and respond. And probably more than likely, we end up in a situation where we end up regretting how we reacted to a situation while we are in an emotional state. 9 times out of 10, making an emotional decision or emotional response will lead to regret. All right, so let's not do that. She talked about accepting your feeling. Something that distress tolerance is accepting the feeling without going to different coping mechanisms. And those coping mechanisms could be, like you actually escaping those emotions. Instead of dealing with them, you'll try to numb yourself, you'll overeat, might drink, find a different vice that will put a band-aid on how you feel so that you don't have to deal with it. But ultimately, it's all temporary. And once it the feeling wears off or the effect wears off, you still have those feelings to deal with. So let's learn to find ways to actually deal with them. And one way is to accept how you're feeling. Accept how you're feeling, make room for it. Don't try to pass it off or ignore it or dismiss it. Let it be there. Sit in it and realize what you're doing. And then let it pass. And, when it passes, it's going to be in its own time. So just learning to be patient with yourself and learning to go through the emotions and really dealing with the root of your emotions. A lot of times we deal with the surface. Let's dig deeper this time, okay? Let's dig deeper this year. Learning to think more mindfully. So it kind of goes back to Dr. Judy and what she was saying, having mindfulness to overcome those negative type of emotions to kind of regulate that emotional vulnerability. How can we do that? Being more mindful, but actually learning to accept what emotion we are in, allowing it to feel the feels, and figure out how to go about it. Dr. Tracy did a great job with giving an example of how to go through those emotions, how to accept it, how to deal with it, make room for it, and then allow it to pass in its own time. So I hope you all got something from this. That is all that I have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in and for rocking out with us. We appreciate each and every single one of you for being here. You could be anywhere else, but you are here with us. So thank you so much. And we hope that you got something from this. We hope that you can overcome your emotions. It is a daily process, but the more you progress at it and deal with it every day, the better you become. So let's be our best versions of ourselves, okay? Until next time, have an amazing day and an awesome rest of your week. Intelexx here, and welcome to Intelexx Artrepreneur Agency, the Indeed for Artists. If you want to be a part of the intellectual community, check us out. We have so much going on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and everywhere in between. And we even got our own app, okay? So make sure to check us out. Go to Intelexx.com. Go to our link tree. Look us up on social media at Intelexx APC so that we can best serve you. All right, we thank you so much for being a part of our vision. We appreciate you, and we wouldn't be here without all of our amazing subscribers and supporters. Don't forget to sign up for the talent show every month, and someone always leaves with a prize. And don't forget to take advantage of all of our special offers, our events, our merch, our resources, our referrals, because we are here to serve you, okay? And thank you for the love. Until next time.